Mr. Morning Joe, I heard you leaving the Republican Party. Ha ha ha.
So goodbye. Please don't cry.
Now that Joe is not a Republican.
Well, good morning. It's going to be smoking out there today. Somebody say tomorrow's going to be 106 or something? Yikes. Come on, baby. Well, we're out here. We're just a little bit above sea level up on Mount Hood here this morning. It's like toasty already. We got the air con on. Leon's been all working here for hours. What time did you get here this morning? 6:30. Come on, he's already needing a break. Needing to like take a snooze and get a Snickers and a Coke. Coca-Cola. I got a little story. I'm going to talk about Coca-Cola here later. Well, we're if you're wondering, you just got up and smoked a big bong full out there, and Linda and Oliver's, and you're wondering, what in the world am I listening to? You're listening to The Patriot. Andy Vasquez called it the Trump station earlier. I thought that was new. Well, we're out here representing the state of Jefferson, and we're in East Linda, California. And if you haven't heard of that place, don't get too concerned about it. I was born in Marysville, been raised in Marysville, and it's amazing to me. Most people don't even know where that is, and they're down in Sacramento. They say, where's Marysville? Well, we're out here in Yuba County. And so this station, this signal goes out to, I don't know, portions of about 5 counties probably around Yuba County. So if you're listening, welcome. And let's see, what else should I tell you? So get all the legitimate stuff, all the administrative stuff out of the way. Let's see, you can listen also if you want to listen on FM 104.3, 104.3. If you want to listen on the computer, you can go to KNYCradio.com and live stream there. You just hit on the listen live. It is not recorded, so if you get interrupted and you want to listen to something, or you can only listen for part of the show and you want to listen later, you can now do that, courtesy of a guy named Chris Starkey, who has a YouTube channel called One Eye Blind Media. So you just click on YouTube, go over to YouTube, and then type in 4 words with space in between, like you would in a sentence, One Eye Blind Media, and his channel page will come up. And then look for playlists, click on playlists, and then look for Live with Lou. And I think there might be about 15 shows stacked up there that you can listen to. I think it's minus the commercials, and a lot of the bumper music is gone because of copyright issues when you go onto YouTube. So it's a little shorter show, and maybe that'll be to your liking. You can just hear the talk, most of the talk. I think Chris adds a little bit of permitted music in. And but if you want to listen to that, you can listen whenever you want from wherever you want. Thank you for listening. Let's see, what else should I tell you before we get started here? Oh, I want to just give out this right away. If you want to like say something to the president, it used to be you wrote a letter and sent it back, and then you had to know the email addresses once technology came in. But this is kind of an easy way. I've communicated more with President Trump than I have with any of the other presidents before him, whatever flavor they were. So if you want to do that, it's very, very easy if you have a computer. You can just go to White House, one word, whitehouse.gov, G-O-V, not G-O-F, and whitehouse.gov. And then when you get there, it's very faint and small. You see a picture of the president, and then up in the right hand of the screen, it says Get in Touch. You click on that, and it all of a sudden there's a bunch of blanks where put in your name, put in your address, put in your phone number, or they ask a number of those. It's all laid out there. You fill that in, and then there's a nice fat box, and you can type in whatever your feelings are, or you're attaboy, or don't like that, and click send, and you did it. Probably take you, if you know what you want to say, 1 minute, 2 minutes, boom, boom, boom. It's got it. So there you have it, whitehouse.gov, then Get in Touch in the right corner, and then One Eye Blind Media if you want to listen to this show later or other older shows. Somebody said, oh, you should have listened to him. He's a dirty, bad guy. You can One Eye Blind Media, playlists, listen to Live with Lou. And maybe there's 11 shows. I said 15 earlier, but maybe there's only 11. Thanks for listening. Leon is here. I want to thank him for helping me today. And we're going to be here for 3 hours. We are talking live today, so you can call in at 742-5555. That's a 530 area code, 742-5555. Generally, if you're on my topic, when I'm talking about a topic, if you call right in and you got something to say that's interesting or corrective, you want to correct me on something I'm saying, or you want to add something to it, I might take the call. Otherwise, I won't, and I'll abort the call. But we do it with style and flair because Leon handles it. But this is a pro-choice station. I'm a pro-choice commentator. So sometimes your calls aren't convenient to my career and what I'm saying or my topic or what I'm up to nowadays. It's cramping my style a little bit or it's not helpful to me. So I abort the call. You've heard that before. So, thank you for listening, and I wanted to mention right away that my friend Buck Weckman sent me an email, or not me personally, but just he email blasted people that are on a email list for the back and forth at the Marysville City Council over having marijuana dispensaries. And what we've seen with the Marysville City Council and the administration of the city is they don't have any integrity. And they lie, and they change the rules continuously to complement what they want to do. You know, have you ever gone and applied? I've done this. I've worked with every agency, Marysville, Yuba City, Sutter County, Yuba County, and had to make application and appear before the agencies to beg and plea for what I wanted to do, which was always a very legitimate and straightforward and a benefit to the county and city. But I've always had to pay money and jump through hoop, and spend months and thousands of dollars just to do the right thing. Isn't that something? So now, when we have the idea of marijuana dispensaries, which the county residents, which includes Marysville, voted 2 different times on propositions that were put on the ballot by marijuana proponents, that's people for the idea. Twice that was put on the ballot. Twice it was defeated. But in spite of that, the city council, you know, when you think of this thing of representative government, they're there, democracy, republic, they're there to represent us. They ain't representing us. And so they put this, they passed, this didn't go on the ballot, but they decided as a city council, we're going to have marijuana dispensaries in our city. But the problem is they didn't conform. They set up a medical marijuana a zone, basically, along 3rd Street, and then they kept changing the zone because the people that were applying for the permits to have a marijuana dispensary didn't conform to the zone, and then people like the Lanza family that basically own the city council, they didn't want to they had a building on 10th Street at 10th and B. So they wanted their dispensary over there. And so the city council has basically violated the law, violated ethics, their own integrity, violated the Brown Act. And so the only person that has had the perseverance and the backbone to take this on is Buck Weckman, who started out having a problem with this marijuana thing. It's like in some ways we all are kind of live and let live. But Buck Weckman has been a former employee at the California Department of Forestry and Firefighting, and he lives up in the mountains. He's lived there, raised his kids there, and he and his wife still live there. And there was basically a lot of criminal behavior with marijuana grows all over the foothills of Yuba County. In other words, people that are growing this marijuana are not obeying other laws. And they're trashing property, packing weapons, etc., doing a lot of crazy stuff, polluting the streams. So Buck got involved in advocacy of like, hey, we need, if we're going to allow, since medical marijuana use is legal, with a Prop 215, with a 215 card, they call it, we need to have a proper code or enforcement or ordinance for law enforcement to easily enforce the rules, which we didn't have that, and we still haven't achieved that in Yuba County. So Buck's been involved. So what happened is because Buck has the city council by the legal short hairs, and they knew it, and he filed an appeal after they gave a conditional use permit for a dispensary that is only 200 and something feet, 270 feet or something like that, away from Ellis Lake. Now, originally, the distance from a place where kids frolic was 1,000 feet. Then they reduced it to 500. Then they got it down to like 300. They just keep changing the rules depending on the building they want to use. And now they don't even conform to that. So what they did is, let's change the description of Ellis Lake from a park to something else. So it doesn't, so in other words, it isn't really a park. It's something else out there, so it doesn't have to conform to that so many feet away from rule. But the fact is, it's just a double speak of government. Like it's like a euphemism. Like instead of like butcher your baby, poison your baby, cut your baby up, it's like, well, we need to terminate the pregnancy. And so the government of Marysville, even though the city of the lake in the city of Marysville, if you added up all the activity at all the parks in Marysville, of all the kids that frequent them in a week, more kids go to the Ellis Lake than all the parks in Marysville together. So it's so fascinating that if you're a pervert, if you've got a sex charge, you can't live within 2,000 feet of a place where kids hang out, which eliminates any of them living in the city of Marysville. But it's kind of interesting to see, when you look at like where liability is, they say, well, we're going to allow a medical dispensary within 270 feet of our kids. Anybody can frequent it. But a person that has a sexual charge can't be within 2,000 feet of that place. It's interesting how we have these various standards. But when the government wants something, regardless of what the people want, they're going to do it. And so there's an appeal hearing. So what they did is when Buck filed his appeal on this conditional use permit for the use of the Cargill building, that big green building behind B Street at B and 10th, when he filed the appeal without any reason given at all, they as we approached the appeal date, the city canceled the date and postponed it, and then and then they went to the Planning Commission and said, hey, we need to change this code to comply. So what they were trying to do is change things before the appeal so they could knock the props out from under Mr. Weckman's appeal. So the appeal is going to be heard this Tuesday, July 18th at 6 p.m. upstairs in the Marysville City Hall, which is at the corner of 6th and C Street. So you should go to that if you're in the city, or if you're in the county, you should go to that, support Buck. Here's some of his points that he's contesting. He says the mayor has accepted thousands of dollars in disguised campaign donations from a marijuana dispensary applicant. That's River City Phoenix people. They're one of the winners. We predicted the winners before the applications were all in because they paid off all these folks. And so Buck asked the question, will Ricky Scamilloa, the mayor, continue to vote on these issues when he's been taking thousands of dollars from, in fact, he's got two $5,000 gifts from people, either the River City Phoenix people or people associated with them. Buck also says the city has already delayed this appeal without a given cause, and they are treating this appeal hearing different than other previous marijuana appeals. Will they try and suppress the presentation of evidence, he asked. And he said, did Marysville city staff violate an open meeting laws, that's called the Brown Act, and show preference to this marijuana dispensary grow site location, which is the Lanza family? Now, just a little background to that, the Lanza family, if you don't like the 1% extra sales tax you're paying, like if you go into Yuba City or Linda, you're paying 7.5, or out in Olivehurst, anywhere out in the Yuba County, outside the city of Marysville or Yuba City, you pay 7.5% on your purchases. In Marysville, you pay 8.5%, and you can attribute that to the Lanza family, one of the wealthier families in the area, because they don't live here and they shop elsewhere, but they wanted more money for the city so they would improve the city, and instead of them contributing money to the city, they thought, well, we'll just take it from the residents, who are some of the poorest people in the area, and we will fund. See, the city council wasn't supposed to fund their own attempt to boondoggle this tax through. They're not supposed to campaign for it, this 1% sales tax, and they weren't supposed to fund it. But what they did is they went out and they cheated. It may have been legal, but it wasn't ethical. And they got Mr. Lanza to fund the political campaign. All those mailers you got, that was funded by a guy that was going to win big. He's going to win big with a dispensary in his big building, and now it's up for sale for $8.5 million. A few years ago, before all this hullabaloo, was like $3 or $4 million they were trying to get rid of that old building over there for. Funny how things work, right? You pay the extra tax, and David Lanza and family make $5 extra million on their old building that they couldn't sell before, and they're going to sell it. And it may already been sold by now. In fact, it's interesting, on the internet, before the conditional use permit was given, the building was already being advertised with a conditional use permit. Now that's confidence, right? I've never had that confidence when I've gone before the planners or the city council, the board of supervisors. I never had that kind of confidence that they're going to vote my direction. I guess you just got to grease the palm, right? So people were advertising that building for sale at $8.5 million, and it included a conditional use permit to grow and sell marijuana right there. But when we talked to the cities, they said, we didn't give them no permit. I said, wow, would that be called the fixes in? Maybe. So Buck asked this question, is Marysville violating several of their own ordinances in the issuing of this conditional use permit? That's what Buck thinks. That's what he's going to argue this coming Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And will the city council continue to deny that Ellis Lake is a park and recreation area and that minor children play there. Now, we should have a contest and we should have winners or something to come up with a new description of what Ellis Lake is: a biological experiment, an ecological, maybe we could call it a wetlands. But we can't. But what Buck says, are you going to deny? Here's the sad part. Really, we make fun of it. At some point, these things are so out of line and so egregious out in all of us. That just means really funky. That you just have to make fun of stuff because it's so sad that people that are in charge are liars and cheats and cannot be trusted. It used to be, at least I felt you used to, maybe I just wasn't old enough. My parents were kind of running the show in our household. I always felt you could trust the older people that were running the show and in charge of the city and the police chief. I just thought, well, those people were just good as gold. I guess it's just being a kid and being naive, right? I don't know. Maybe they weren't good as gold. Maybe it was just all a mirage. But certainly today, if you have become used to not paying attention to what's going on in City Hall or the Board of Supervisors, it's like my old meth friend that was now clean. He said, Lou, he said, when I was an addict, I'd steal your dope and help you look for it all night. That's exactly what the city council does. They'll steal your money, raise your taxes, help the rich guy in town. They'll take the rich guy's money, tell you a bunch of lies, so you'll vote for the tax. Then they'll give the rich guy a dispensary, and he'll make millions of dollars. You see how that works? And how does it work out for you? Well, you're down there. Like I walked around the lake the other night. The lake, the lake is actually listed in the documents and in the websites and all the documents of the city. You know what the lake's listed as? It's listed as a recreational area or a park. Ellis Lake. It's called Ellis Lake. And it's just like abortion. People contradict themselves everywhere they turn because it's like, oh, is it a baby or not a baby? Is it a lake or is it not a lake? Is it a recreational area or not a rec? Well, what are we going to call? Let's change the name of all the parks to wetlands. Those are places where kids play on swings and fish and hang out and fly kites and all the kind of stuff, right? Feed the ducks. So go to the meeting. Don't just be a couch potato and hide your head in the sand and point your fingers and blame other people. Go to the meeting Tuesday, July 18th, 6 p.m. upstairs at the Marysville City Hall. If you've never been there, go and find out what it's like for the first time and support Mr. Weckman. He's going to present a PowerPoint presentation. It's liable to blow your hair right back. We'll be right back in just a second.
Girl, what restaurant accept the EBT cards for the hot food? Jack in the Box, KFC, Subway, El Pollo Loco, Rally's Burger, most of the donut shops, the burger stands, Woody Barbecue, all the fish markets, some of the beauty supply stores on Crenshaw, and Rainbow on La Brea. You can buy you some clothes. How much you got on your EBT card? Girl, I got enough to get it turned up. I done took the kids to the babysitter. Which liquor store take the EBT card? Where y'all get that Patron last time?
Public service announcement. This is where the taxpayer money goes.
All right, we're back, and you're listening to Lou Benninger, Live with Lou. And a few weeks ago, and in an article in the Territorial Dispatch, I was talking about Kate's law that passed the House. It still has to pass the Senate, and it was based on a law that based on an incident that happened where Kate Steinle, and a woman in her 30s, was walking with her father along the pier there in San Francisco and was shot by a man who had been deported 5 times and had stolen a .40 caliber gun out of a government car and shot, and she died in her father's arms there. But a few months before that, another person, a young person, younger even, Casey Bissell, I think he was 25, was stabbed to death after he walked out of a restaurant where he was celebrating being accepted to UC Berkeley to study international relations. He'd already completed a couple of years of college, so he was kind of a junior college transfer, if you will. But he'd been accepted, and not everybody gets accepted to the UC system. You have to be pretty sharp. And Casey had been working his way through school as a sous chef at a restaurant, and really didn't do a thing. There wasn't an incident that grew into violence. These guys, two Mexicans, came down the street. They were drunk, and they chased Bissell down and stabbed him repeatedly and killed him. So within a few months, we have two young people that didn't do anything to bring on this type of activity, and were killed, and they were killed by illegals. The two people that attacked Bissell were illegal, and the fellow that shot Steinle was illegal. So probably about 9 months ago, a young teen boy in Olivehurst was shot in the face. And he was shot in the face. Three guys shot him. One guy actually did the shooting, but there were three guys together. And fortunately, the boy survived. In fact, I know the boy, and I know the mother. Know the mother better than her son, but I've known him for years. And the boy at that time was 15 years old, and the three fellows that did the shooting were also juveniles, Mexicans, and they came into juvenile hall. And eventually, two of them took pleas and got out. But the final one, it says in the local paper, the Appeal Democrat, Juan Valle, V-A-L-L-E, 17, they're mentioning him. Normally, they wouldn't mention a juvenile, but they tried him as an adult, and therefore his name appears in the paper. He was originally charged with 3 counts of attempted murder, and as I mentioned, it happened last October. So Valle pleaded no contest to 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic rifle and admitted the crime was gang-related. And Valle and his partners are Sureños. If that's new to you, there's a number of Mexican gangs, Norteños, Sureños, MS-13. Those are terms, right? Gangs. Sureños typically are Southern California or Mexican gang, even farther south into Mexico. But for whatever reason, people divide up into these different groups. And so they shot the guy in the face. And Valle, I noticed, because I spend time in juvenile hall, hardly knows a lick of English. Now, I thought that was fascinating. So since he's illegal, then he couldn't have been born here, because under the anchor baby lie that somehow somehow they find a basis in the Constitution, and if you're born here, though you're from a foreign country, you get to be a citizen here. What's like the average person in America thinks that's nonsense. The more intellectual people are the stupidest people around on this deal. And so no other country will allow you to pull that off. So this guy wasn't born here, so somehow he came in here, whether he came in on his own or his parents brought him and never got him hooked up, or maybe his parents were illegal. Don't know all the story, but this guy's illegal. So we nearly had a Kate Steinle, Casey Bissell incident right here in Olivehurst, where a kid who had nothing to do with these boys, the victim was not a gang member. He was just a young kid, I think going to probably Yuba Gardens or one of those middle schools out there, and got himself, or maybe he was actually over at Lyndhurst, Got himself shot in the face with a semi-automatic rifle. Amazing, huh? It's amazing. The amazing thing is, the miracle is that he survived. He should have died. The bullet didn't go into his brain. So on and on it goes. Illegals in this country. Do we say that only illegals commit crimes? No, but it's like, why would we bring people into this country illegally or allow people to stay in this country illegally while they're committing crimes, and you just keep deporting them, or you don't deport them at all? Like under Obama, he just let them out. Unbelievable. We did a huge list last week of all the crazy, stupid stuff that went on under the Obama administration. Is he the only stupid thing? Is he the only president that's done stuff that you don't agree with? No, but I tell you, the list was amazing. In fact, what we're finding today, if you've been watching the news, that the Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch are going to make history as being the most corrupt heads of the law enforcement community in our country. What a shame. You know, there are some really cool people that are law enforcement agents, and to have your top boss be a crook, that must just drive you totally up the wall. So I'm glad the young man lived, and I'm glad Mr. Valle is going to serve a lot of time in prison. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of gang members running around, and I'm happy for the Yuba County District Attorney's Office and Sheriff Durfer working so smoothly together to put the kaboom on these people. I've always told the gang members, if maybe things are changing in Sutter County now, but I've always said, if you guys are planning on shoot somebody, don't be doing it in Yuba County, because you're going to do some maximum time over here. But sometimes they don't pay attention. Kids don't pay attention. Well, in the last show, Andy Vasquez and Matt Plumley, they spent a lot of time towards the end talking about pensions. Andy is fired up about pensions all of a sudden, and he's been doing a great job. I was listening early this morning, and he was had some clips on about questions and answers about pensions, and they were really good. I thought, oh, man, I haven't heard that before. That's some good stuff. Very, very clear explanation of how we got in the predicament we are. Then he backed that up with having the auditor controller of Sutter County on, Nate Black. And Nate did a great job. I wish he would have had a little bit more time but on Andy's show, but he did a great job, and I think Andy's going to have him back. Well, what great timing. I think it's today's paper in the Appeal Democrat. You got to go read this. This is amazing. Remember, just a few weeks ago, Robert Bendorf, who's the county administrator of Yuba County, suggested to the Board of Supervisors the same thing that the Marysville City did to the city residents. We need to add 1% to the sales tax because we can't stay up with the cost of doing business. Now, remember I said we use euphemisms. That's when you use a really pleasant sounding word to describe something that's really gnarly, like me saying to you, you're really inconvenient to me, and then I shoot you in the face. Now, it's a lot nicer if they say, well, what did you do? I said, well, the person was just inconvenient to me. We use these euphemisms. And so Robert Bendorf says it's the rising cost of doing business. So then in my mind, I think, without reading the article, did the cost of toilet paper go up? Well, did the cost of paint or paving go up? Did the cost of renting buildings go up? I mean, what's gone up so much that we have to add 1% and raise millions and millions of dollars a year? What went up so much? Did the price of cars go up? Well, they don't really define it. They say that it's a euphemism. You use a pleasant-sounding word to mask the truth. The truth is that the state of California and the counties and the cities are totally screwed up, and essentially they're bankrupt. So it's a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is you promise fantastic returns on investment to the first people, and you start paying them some returns. But since you're not generating any money, any extra money besides the original investment, you're not really making the returns you promised. You trust that new people that will believe your lie will come in, pay into the same system, that you can take their money and pay the first people fantastic interest, earned interest. And then the second tier of people come through, and then they're looking for their interest, and then you got to get another group of people to come through and keep the suckers. You just got to keep getting more and more suckers. So this is a sucker talk. When you say the cost of doing business is going up, well, what do you mean a cost of doing business? It's funny. Well, they were talking on the radio here. Somebody, I guess, called in and asked, "What's CalPERS?" Didn't they do that, or Andy? So Andy was telling me that somebody was asking him, "What's CalPERS?" Well, CalPERS is the California Public Employee Retirement System. And I got a kick out of listening to one of the interviews Andy played. One person said, "What is the state government doing investing our money? Your own money. If you put money, like, and I put money in a pension, do you think of all the choices?" I was having a lunch with somebody yesterday, and she was saying, "Lou, she's older than me." And she said, "Lou, what are you doing with your money? Do you have an investment advisor? Do you manage your own money? All that kind of stuff." And she was saying the different options you have to manage your money. And you know what was never brought up? The thought never occurred to us at the lunch table of asking the state of California to manage your money. Why? Because they don't do anything well. What does a state of California, I want you to think of any government entity you have that manages your affairs well and doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to get substandard service. I want you to think of all the government entities that you have to deal with. And even when you get decent service, I want you to think of how much it costs, how much you're paying those people. It's a phenomenal amount of money. So the guy answered the question of this woman that was asking him. He says, "What in the world is the state government doing managing personal funds of their employees?" It's crazy. Why wouldn't, if it's going to be union, and they're all union, which I disagree with, why wouldn't the unions have their own pension fund and manage it themselves? And if the people think the union's ripping them off, they can sue the people. Or they can leave the union, right? Get out of it. But to have the state government, and so what happens whenever the state's involved? Politics are always involved, right? Politics. And lying, and cheating, and deceiving. You think, oh, did the government deceive us? Look at your propositions on any ballot. Have you ever gone to vote and the title of the proposition is exactly the opposite of what it's actually saying? It's deception. It's total deception. So today it says Yuba County seeks $6.6 million loan from the Water Agency. Now, it was interesting as I listened to Nate Black, the Auditor Controller of Sutter County, talk about ways that we could cut down our debt to the pensions or change the way we do pensions. He handled a lot of different questions. One of the things he said was that CalPERS, the pension fund, you can save a lot of money by front end. Instead of paying month by month your pensions, you can pay them the entire lot at the start of the 12 months, and you can save millions of dollars. Well, that is dependent on whether you have the money to front, because sometimes you're just living hand to mouth. Many of you out there live hand to mouth. What I mean by that is you're about a month's worth of pay away from going broke. In other words, if you get laid off, you may have a month's reserves and then you're going to start getting eviction notices. That's what statistics tell us. So to be able to front end, make the payment to CalPERS at the front of the year for 12 months rather than month by month and get that big deduction, which Nate says is the wise way to go, and I agree. In order to do that, Yuba County doesn't have the money. It reminded me of when Marysville wanted to develop some property and get in the development business, even though nobody on the city council knew how to spell real estate. And they didn't have any money, and so they went out and borrowed money. You know what happened? Right after they borrowed all this money and did it with bonds, and then the economy tanked, you know what the city council said? Well, we meant well. Well, we had good intentions. Well, it wasn't our fault that the economy tanked. And it was a good idea if it would have all worked out. Well, that's the talk of private enterprise. Private enterprise constantly takes measured risks. And they know the downside. And if they lose, not the taxpayer. But the city council thought they could go out and do something that no one, it'd be like me saying, hey, you need a open heart surgery? I saw a YouTube clip. Maybe I can do that for you. And then when I open your chest up and it didn't work out, I thought, well, I wanted it to work out. Well, I wanted to help you. I cared about you. I had good intentions. I'm a nice guy. I'm honest. And yet we got a dead patient. And the B Street boondoggle where they borrowed $5 million and then they borrowed $3 million, ended up $5 million. And then now we know $17 million on 5 acres that nobody wants. Yuba County seeks $6.6 million loan. I want you to see loan. For those in Oliver's, you spell it L-O-A-N, not L-O-N-E. Loan from water agency. That may not mean a lot to a lot of you. Let me help you with that. Yuba County, that means 5 supervisors are going to seek $6.6 million from the water agency. That's the same 5 guys. That's me saying, I'm going to change hats, and then I'm going to go over there and I'm going to rob that fund that's supposed to be for flood control. Right? What Kurt Akins, who runs the Yuba County Water Agency, always says is, we're about water resources and flood control. That's what we're about. But more and more, what that fund is becoming is a slush fund to backfill Yuba County's blunders. And what we have is an incestual relationship between the 2 boards, because the 5 supervisors they get up from that set of seats right over there and they walk across the room and sit on another set of 5 seats, add 2 more ad hoc members or public members to make 7, and then they vote themselves another stash of money. You see how that works? And all the while they say, well, Kurt Akins says when you talk to him about Yuba County Water Agency, he says, hey, we're on this, and all our money tracks right to flood control and water resources. And now we're going to make a $6.6 million loan, and you know what it's for? Because the cost of doing business, according to Mr. Bendorf, is going up. But he's doing what Nate says is a good idea. Front end paying the pensions to try to cut down the unfunded liability because they can't afford what they said they wanted to pay. They gave all these longevity raises, which means they paid people more than they were worth, more than we could afford. Let me put it that way, more than we could afford. I'm not going to argue with you about your worth. If I can't afford to pay you, I should lay you off or just say, if you can't hang with me at this price, we can't do business. I'll have to wait till somebody else comes along. So Yuba County Administrator Ben Dorff said CalPERS changed its methodology this year of how a county can pay for the unfunded liability portion of the program. In the past, the county paid month by month. But started this year, CalPERS will allow for a flat lump sum up front. Why are they doing that? Because they're broke? Pay up front, we'll give you a discount. You ever had a contractor? If you'll front pay me, I'll give you a discount, right? Or had somebody, you're getting ready to charge something on a credit card, they'll say, if you'll pay with cash, I'll give you 3%. Right? Why do they do that? Because they need the money right now, and they don't want to lose that 3%. So CalPERS is wanting upfront money, and so all these administrators and auditor controllers are thinking, let's try to do that because we're screwed by this system. We're stuck in it, like Nate says, unless they can get a court to go along with them to overthrow this or get some legislation. But you're not going to get any legislation because it's controlled by Democrats who are owned by unions, so you're in trouble. So Ben Dorff says we can pay monthly. We can still pay monthly. That hasn't changed. So you can pay up front and save money for the fiscal year or pay monthly with an interest rate of 3.5%. So if the county paid CalPERS monthly, the total cost would end up being $6.9 million. But if they get the loan from a water agency, it'd be $6.68 million. And I always get a kick out of this when they say interest rate of roughly. It's a bad sign right there, roughly. Like, how much is it? Why don't you just say exactly what it is? So the interest rate is roughly from the Yuba County Water Agency 1%. Which is what the water agency would most likely make in interest anyway because the money is in the county's treasury, being invested in a pool rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe the Yuba County Water Agency should look for better places to stash its money. So Ben Dorff is arguing if we pay 1% compared to 3%, it's a no-brainer. Let me think. This is what the city council said when they bought the B Street property and borrowed all the money. They had no money down. And they said, this is a no-brainer. People are making money hand over fist, flipping houses in 2005, 2006, 2004. This is a no-brainer. We're going to have a big old commercial retail establishment come in there, buy up all that 5 acres, make it beautiful along the lake, and make money. We're going to make more sales taxes. This is a no-brainer. This is what Ben Dorff said. It's a no-brainer. Is it a no-brainer to only pay 1% interest versus 3%? That's a no-brainer, but that's a straw man argument. That's not the whole story. That's not the whole story. He says it's a lot of money. So if you can take advantage of a loan with the agency and pay up. When did the agency, the Yuba County Water Agency, become a bank for Yuba County? That makes me nervous. And here's why it makes me nervous, because they're not asking me. I'm a Yuba County resident, and they're not asking me my permission. And that money's my money and your money. If you're a Yuba County resident, that money's your money. That is not Mr. Aiken's money. That isn't board member Charlie Matthews' money or Brent Hasey's money or the 5 boards of supervisors' money. That is our money. And one of the bad things about our present form of government is that they vote like you're agreeing with them. It's the same way county residents of Yuba County did not want marijuana dispensaries. You may think it's a good thing. You may love smoking marijuana. I did it, and I loved it. You may or may not think that, but the city council did exactly the opposite of what the city residents wanted when they voted for the dispensaries. And these guys are going to go borrow this money. Now, what happens when you borrow money? You presume upon the future. You presume that you're going to be able to pay that money back. Now, how are they going to pay that back? Well, Ben Dorff's saying, he's a good administrator. He's saying, we're going to pay that back month by month, just like we'd pay CalPERS. Instead of paying CalPERS, we're going to pay the agency. In other words, it's just an in-house loan. But it isn't really an in-house loan. The Yuba County Water Agency is not the Yuba County government. It's separate. So should the government of Yuba County go and borrow money from that agency? And because if they turn around and can't pay it back, something disastrous happens. It'd be different if you had it loaned to the Franklin Fund, for instance, and got 1% or some other deal. You're going to get that money back. But if it's like you loaning to yourself, you know what's going to happen there, don't you? We're just going to get screwed as taxpayers. So we'll be right back, and we're going to continue on for 2 more hours.
To my kids' real daddy. Thank you, government, for putting me on. I mean, you was the definition of a real father. Because when your kids is hungry, they have food stamps. Yeah, we shop at Walmart. Yeah, we shop at Publix. We shop at Winn-Dixie. When your kids need shelter, yes, you have housing. And you also have Section 8 for a lot of us. And when our kids fall, get hurt, or sick, they have Medicaid. Yes, we go to the ER, we go to the walk-in clinic, and we also can make a doctor's appointment. I get their prescriptions with no hesitation. Now, if that's not the definition of a real father, making sure your kids have food, shelter, and health care, I don't know what it is. So like I said, thank you, government, for being my kid's daddy, and thank you for putting me on.
All right, we're into our second hour here. You're listening to Live with Lou, and it's Leon and Lou here trying to make this happen out here today. I'm just listening. In fact, I was following this story with the legalization and sales of marijuana over in Nevada, and they ran out of marijuana. Now, I want you to, all you druggies out there, I want to just give you a shout out to you today that have been buying on the black market. Did you ever run out there? That black market ever run out? The supply system ever fail you? I'll tell you, I was in there for years and never did go without. Now, I want you to just hold that thought. Soon as government took over to cash in on it, they run out because they got, oh, well, no, you can't sell it. No, you can't. Well, you can't it's this group, they're going to transport it. This group sells it, then you're going to get paid to transport it. Then you're a wholesaler, you're a retailer, then you're the transporter, and only certain people can sell it. And so what happened when you get all that bureaucracy involved, everybody getting a little chunk of the action, everybody get tax. The whole system breaks down. I want you to just think if the government handled like they do alcohol and food and marijuana, if they handle your food that way. I want you to think about that. And then when you look at Venezuela and you look at Russia, when you look at any old films of Russia and China, and you think, how do people starve? Like, my God, what happened? Aren't they as smart as us? Yeah, they're smart. They just have a screwed up political system where the government thinks it needs to be involved in managing the sale of alcohol and marijuana and all kinds of other stuff. And so what happens? You run out. You just run out. It's another instance of government bureaucracy. It's a boondoggle. It's a fiasco. I was talking to a contractor. I'm going to go back to finish up this thing with Yuba County Water Agency in just a minute. But I want to, since it's Las Vegas and this Nevada marijuana thing, I just thought it's a perfect classic example of government not being able to, doing something they're not supposed to be involved in. I was talking to my friend Ted Holmes, who's been a contractor here for 40 years. And he basically got out of the contracting business. He's done doing some, but he does a lot of other type of businesses, plumbing and lift-off floors. But I said, Ted, weren't you telling me that in Yuba County that if I was to go get a lot in the foothills or something, that there'd be no way I could afford to build the house? And he said, yeah, Lou. He said the impact fees are so high in Yuba County, and they're demanding a certain high-tech septic system and water systems And he said, by the time you pay all the school impact fees and impact fees for that and this, he said, Lou, there's nobody going to be, only the ultra rich will ever build their own house. You're much better off buying a used home. And he said, that's why the construction industry, he said, they're building out the old subdivisions in Plumas Lake and stuff because those fees have already been paid on those lots, I guess. But he said, you're not going to see any spec houses being built in the foothills. It's just another instant of government just causing big problems. So some people have advocated this between the Board of Supervisors. It's an incestuous relationship where they step over and step into another role and handle hundreds of millions of dollars for the Yuba County Water Agency. Now, before, PG&E handled most of that money because they ran the operation and just gave us some profit. But now with PG&E out of the picture and Yuba County Water Agency handling all that money, all the revenue, all the power sales, all the water sales, there's lots of money flowing through that bank account. Now, some people, when they start their own business, they never seen that much money. They used to just work for somebody and they got a check and you go home and buy the groceries and pay your car payment and you're used to handling that amount of money. But a lot of times when people get into private, they start their own private business and they think, oh, that money coming in, and they spend it like it's theirs instead of paying all their bills. And they start divvying it out here and divvying it out there. And pretty soon they oh, wow, I didn't pay attention to where that money was supposed to be going. So now these 5 supervisors who have run the county into the ground over a period of years are now seeing that pot of gold over there at the Yuba County Water Resources, Water Agency, the Bullards Bar Dam, power and selling that water. And it's going to get awful tempting. Now, it'd be awful tempting, and even if there was a separate board over there, to like try to twist their arms and just say, we'll pay you interest. Just give us the money, and so save us some money, and we're all in this together, and we're helping the population here, and we got to take care of our employees. Such a good argument. Just loan us that money. You're only making 1% anyway. But then when we can't pay it back, there's going to be that pressure to forgive it. Well, just forgive it. It's just the people's money anyway. It's just another fund for the consumers of Yuba County. They don't care. They're just out there doing their thing, smoking weed, going and working at Walmart. They don't care, right? We're really doing the right thing because it's our money anyway. But when they say it's our money, it's just 7 people or 5 people talking, depending on which agency. So it may be time with this gargantuan amount of money. The Yuba County Water Agency is processing more money than probably any other agency around here, any other business, if you look at it, a private business. Maybe it's time for a separate board, all being elected, instead of having the supervisors involved over there. So there's more of an arm's length relationship between people running that Yuba County Water Agency and the Board of Supervisors, just focusing on straightening out the mess they created. Now, the tendency is going to be hey, we just did the right thing, and, if you chose to live in Yuba County, and we're just the poorest county in California, and we meant well, we're nice people, we didn't cheat, we wanted to help our employees, and don't we want to have good employees, and like nobody has ever done anything wrong if you talk to them. Everybody's a nice person. And so therefore, just give us some more money. Give us another 1% on sales tax. And you give us that $6.6 million from the water agency, and we promise to pay it back. Even if things get really gnarly, we promise to pay it back. We promise we aren't going to ask them to forgive that money. Well, go back. You can read the article yourself. And check it out. I am I don't just talk about Tim Tebow every week because I like him. I've never met the guy. He seems like a nice fella, but I'm telling you, there is articles every single week in the paper about Tim Tebow. What is it with him? People love to hate Tebow, and they love to love Bruce Jenner. Do you notice that? There's an article about Bruce Jenner since he pretends he's a woman. Did you notice that? He's got all the equipment now, and he runs around, and people love Bruce Jenner. Oh, they say, well, what do you think about this? And all of a sudden, he has all kinds of insight, and he's so sensitive, and being a transsexual, and just, you know, being able to explain how God made a mistake somewhere along the line with old Bruce. People, in fact, people love to hate Tim Tebow. Why is that? All he's done is overcome some hardships in his early life, became maybe one of the most successful college football stars we'll ever know in the amount of accomplishments, national titles, Heisman trophies, and actually probably could have played in the NFL, but I believe he was blackballed. People say, oh, no, the people that are blackballed is the homosexual guys. In fact, did you see? I mean, if there's anybody, please, if you want to make it in college football, just come out and say you're a homosexual. There's a guy from Kansas State or something, black guy. He came out and said he's a homosexual. Somebody else said it's like, why do I have to read an article all the time on the front page of the paper or a magazine or on the internet every time a guy wants to tell me how he has sex, that he wants to go up the butt of a guy? How come that's main news, that a guy's a homosexual? He wants to poke a guy in the butt. Why is that the most important thing in America? And yet we will trash Tim Tebow, who is just a guy that is just living life, helping people, and is outspoken that he actually believes there's a God and he likes him. And for that, we hate your guts, and we hope you go to hell, if there is one. I just don't understand it. Every day in the paper, LBGTYN, you know, change the colors on your Facebook to celebrate gay pride. Do this, do that. Why doesn't everybody just have sex how they want? You want to have it with a sheep? You want to have it with a bear? You want to have sex with 5 people? You want to marry a dog and a person of the same gender? Why don't you just go do that? Why do I have to celebrate that? Or you have to tell me I got to make you a birthday cake? Why can't you just do that? It's just like, why is this culture so consumed with sexual perversion? It's so amazing. We do that, and then we tell a guy that had sex with an underage girl that he can't live within 2,000 feet of a school or playground, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, granted, some of those people are pedophiles, right? They like Harvey Milk that we sell. You know, on one hand, we love Harvey Milk. The liar, he lied about being dishonorably discharged from the Navy. He said it's because he was gay. He lied about being vandalized because he was gay in his camera shop. He lied. He told a reporter for the Chronicle that he loves to have sex with young boys. And now we have a day that we celebrate Harvey Milk in the public school system. And yet Tim Tebow, we hate him. So Tim Tebow, he basically is blackballed. People say, oh my God, Colin Kaepernick is blackballed just because he's standing up and he was discriminated against and he didn't make any more than however many millions. I don't know, what do you make, 8, 10, $15 million contract, and then they let him go? And now just because he stood up, because, you know, it's like if all my people aren't free, I'm not free. He doesn't really know which people aren't free. He went over to Ghana and celebrated with them, but he's back home now. But we're celebrating Colin Kaepernick. And you know what he needs to do now to get another measure of momentum, Colin, is to have sex with a guy, and then that would the media would never fall out of love with Colin. First of all, he went full wild one on Black Lives Matter, and now he's wanting to be Colin, Martin Luther King, Kaepernick. And if he would just have sex, if he'd come out as a homosexual, I mean, it's like a grand slam. It's a royal flush in poker. He would have knocked it out of the park. But Tim Tebow, who just says, my mom didn't abort me. She's thinking about it, but decided not to abort me. I decided to follow Jesus. And he actually talks about it. And he actually walks like it and behaves like. Now the media loves someone that claims to be like Al Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton, and then has, or Jesse Jackson, and then Reverend Al Sharpton, who isn't married. Somebody went in and checked out his apartment and found condoms and all kinds of stuff, or something had to do with sex. In other words, he's got himself a lady, and he's the Reverend Al Sharpton. And Jesse Jackson knocked up his young, I don't know, was a young assistant or whatever. The media loves those kind of Christian. But if you're a Christian and you're really trying to make it happen that way, and you're trying to help people, but they don't want you to be successful. Oh my God! If you try to run for Senate, or you try to get elected, or you try to have a successful business, they will tear you down. The media. And there ain't no way that NFL was going to allow. You could be a black guy who rapes and pillages on the weekend and scores touchdowns on Sunday and goes to the end zone and then points to the sky and crosses his heart like the sign of the cross. Now that guy, that's what we're looking for. That's the model we're looking for. Somebody that snorts cocaine, drives 100 miles an hour, loses control of his car, kills somebody, gets a manslaughter charge, gets a reduced sentence, and then scores a number of touchdowns, helps win the national championship or whatever, the Super Bowl. That's our hero. So Tim Tebow, who they mocked and they criticized him because he's just, what right does he have to take some other person's spot on their roster? Now that's a real socialistic concept, right? Hey, you had your day in the sun. Now, even though you're still in your 20s, what right do you have? You're stealing a spot on their roster that another legitimate person who occasionally forces himself on a female or lies and cheats, takes payoffs. You're taking a legitimate person's spot on the roster. You're forcing some other person to not be successful because you're taking the roster. Well, Tebow, then if they can't do that, then they say, well, he's obviously a lousy baseball player. Look at his average. Only hitting 222. Horrible player. This is a joke, right? They didn't say that about Michael Jordan when he tried to play baseball, right? Do you remember that? Lots of people have switched deals. It's interesting how the media decides who they're going to love and who they're not going to love. They're not going to love people that are serious Christians. They hate them. They hate God. They're God haters, and they hate Christians. So Tebow, he just keeps bringing it on. He's just having a good time. He's loving life, loving people, helping people that are at the bottom of the social scale, like people that the media wish were aborted, like people that have Down syndrome and have any other kind of disabilities, special needs people. They just say, let's just euthanize those people. Screw those people. Get rid of them. Sell their parts. Tebow has hit safely in 11 of his last 13 games for the Mets high A ball minor league affiliate at Port St. Lucie. He's on an 8-game hitting streak, 8-game win streak. The team is. They're smoking. And he's hitting 11 out of 13 games. I was reading some articles about Tebow, and It's amazing. You know, he went in and the Broncos picked him up. Remember they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers? And he got him into the playoffs, man. It's awesome. But, oh, yeah, he's got a lousy, he can't throw, he can't. It's just like, could that guy even play Pop Warner? By the time the media got done with him, you think, hey, this guy just got the participation trophy at Pop Warner. I mean, they just trashed this guy like they're doing Trump. So it says Tebow was clutch at the plate this week with a 2-out, 3-run double against Fort Myers on Monday, a home run, part of a back-to-back to help the Mets beat Charlotte on Wednesday, and he had an RBI double and eventually scored in the Mets' 3-run fourth inning that carried them to the 3-2 win on over Jupiter on Saturday. He batted .269 this week with a home run, 7 RBIs, da-da-da-da-da. He's doing good. And the media just hates it. Oh, they hate Tebow. I want you to think of who these reporters are. They don't have any Spaldings. They're little sissies, you know. They went to college. They couldn't get into any other profession, so they just observe what everybody else does. They can't do it themselves, so they just write about what everybody else does. Secular people, they hate Tebow. They have a visceral hate equal to what they hate Sarah Palin. They just hate her. Remember that? They just hate her. They called her a pig, right? Pig with lipstick. Oh, they just hated her. Doesn't matter what she did. Doesn't matter whether she was governor and did good in the state of Alaska. It didn't matter whether she can get things accomplished. They just hate her. They hate her. Boy, hate, it just blinds them. There's no place for God, according to the journalists in this secular world. So to them, Tebow is bad, bad, bad. These guys they wouldn't know a real baseball player if it ran into them and busted their lip. They're jealous. People are envious. They're so jealous. You know, it's interesting. People in the secular world are so jealous of people that are living a Christian life. They're just jealous of it. And instead of just admitting they don't have that kind of life, they just throw rocks. Well, I had a Christian once that worked for me or worked with me, and they were this way and they were that way. They hate Tebow because he's a guy that serves God first, not the Mets, not the Denver Broncos, and he'll give up football for God, right? Oh, that just hates that. People hate that. So Tebow's one of the greatest football players in all time, and the media would love to erase his name off all the record books. He's done nothing but good. He's done nothing but raise the ratings wherever he went, whether it was Denver Broncos, whether it was college football, and now wherever he goes how many people who had played pro football or won the Heisman Trophy twice or led to all these national championships would even humble themselves to the level of playing at a minor league baseball team? How many would do that? Very, very few. And the reason is you can't even compare it because Tebow isn't even looking at it like he's trying to achieve stardom. He's just enjoying life, and he feels like that's what God wants him to do. But the secular world can't even relate to that. The party's over here for another bit. Don't go away if you want to hear more about Tebow.
I recently discovered something startling about myself. It turns out that I'm a racist, sexist, misogynist. This came as quite a shock to me. How did this happen? As a person of color, a single woman with a graduate degree who grew up poor in a home without a father, I had a clear political path to follow, and I followed it. I voted for Barack Obama twice. After all, we share the same skin color. His father was from Africa. Mine was too. What other reasons did I need? I was inspired to see a Black man rise to the highest office in the land. I believed his ascent would herald a new beginning, a new era of racial healing and harmony. We would finally have that frank discussion about race that everyone always talks about. I was also inspired by his wife. I was thrilled to see such a strong, opinionated Black woman take the national stage. But then something happened. Actually, several somethings. I realized there was a big contradiction in my own life. I considered myself a free thinker, but I was thinking exactly what I was supposed to. I decided to start asking questions. I belonged to several campus feminist groups. I was even teaching feminism to inner city girls. Part of that teaching involved making the case for abortion. These girls needed to know that they had the right to make decisions about their own bodies. Surely, I thought, that's empowerment. But one day I asked myself, isn't it men who benefit most from consequence-free sex? Doesn't that give them even more power over women? And of course, abortion certainly doesn't empower the woman it prevents from ever being born. When I began to ask my other feminist friends how they reconcile these issues, they just got angry. I was called anti-woman, even by progressive men. But I'm not anti-woman, I thought. I am a woman. I just don't want to be a weak one. I want to be strong, like Michelle. At about the same time, while I was a student at the University of Texas at Dallas, the UT Austin Department of African Diaspora Studies released a statement in which they said, and I quote, African Americans are disproportionately affected by the saturation of our society by firearms. We demand that firearms be banned in all spaces occupied by Black people on our campus. Wait a second, I thought. Why would you want to ban firearms only in Black areas? Doesn't that mean that you either think Black people are more dangerous than other people or less worthy of protection? These questions did not endear me to my progressive friends. I was called a race traitor, even by white people. But I'm not anti-Black. I am Black. I just want to be safe, like Barack. I realized I didn't have a good answer. I only had more questions. Like, why were Blacks doing so poorly in cities that had been run by Democrats for decades? Was it racism and sexism that was holding people back? Or was it something else? The more questions I asked, the less popular I became. But here's the funny thing. I started to feel better about myself. I decided that the very definition of empowerment required me to take responsibility for my own life. I wasn't going to be anyone's victim, which meant I had to protect myself. So I bought a gun. I started to advocate for gun rights. That cost me more friends. I joined the pro-life movement and walked in the March for Life. More friends, gone. Then I crossed the line. I voted Republican, the party that views me as an empowered individual, able to shape my own destiny, not as a member of a victim group. And that's how I became a racist, sexist, misogynist. I'm Antonia Okafor for Prager University.
All right. Well, we were talking about Tim Tebow, and you know who the biggest fans of Tebow are some of the best baseball players in the major leagues. And they were interviewed recently, Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, Colorado Rockies players, both top of their business, and they love to watch Tebow, and they're rooting him on. You know, true athletes who love people that discipline themselves and work incredibly hard. Any really good athlete that stays and not only makes it to the majors of whatever field they're in, but actually makes it to the top have great work ethic. They have good DNA plus great work ethic. And so they have great appreciation no matter what team people have great accomplishments on. And so I love to look at the media and see who they're promoting, because it just reveals what their value system is. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, as I was referring to earlier says, "Oh, I'm a pro Tebow guy or gal." You know, he is so unashamed of his Savior, Jesus of Nazareth. He knows Jesus is going to rock your world when you give it over to him, and he's bold about it, and he knows that the Son of God should be honored and praised. Tebow does that, and I respect him for it. Years before running for president, Donald Trump took to Twitter to praise Tebow. He said, "Tim Tebow has tremendous talent and a proven ability to lead. He deserves to be in the NFL." I feel the same way, but there's just too much political pressure. Isn't it interesting how sometimes there's just too much political pressure and you're just not going to, even though you have great talent and you're a great guy. You know, it's interesting how the NFL has some real criminals that play in it. And they can get DUI after DUI and violate drug tests and slap around their lady. And yet we just clap and cheer on Sunday as they cross that goal line or make 15 tackles or sack the quarterback. And we think, thank you, Jesus. That domestic violence guy just made a great play over there on the sideline, et cetera, et cetera. So here we do. We can't get enough of Bruce Jenner, the transsexual, or the Harvey Milks of the world, who love to have sex with young boys. But Tim Tebow, no, we hate him. We just hate him, and we just cast a curse on him and just pray that Tim Tebow will strike out every single time. So there you have it. Well, if you notice, the counties of Yuba and Sutter are starting a new poverty program, as we played there that song, The Welfare Cadillac. That was by Travis Bell. But that was the Johnny Rebel version of Welfare Cadillac. It just is got, to me, the Bible's full of truth, and then sometimes songs are just so full of truth. Well, in Yuba and Sutter County, we have 2 boards of supervisors that are just confused. And they are starting, they listen, it's like they woke up and there was nobody that was addressing poverty. And so they thought, I was reminding a supervisor this week that called me. I said, do you know how many poverty programs there are in the United States? He didn't know. I said, well, not counting local, there's 127. At one time, there was no government, not one government poverty program in the United States. And, you know, people weren't dying in the streets. People weren't starving to death because people, nonprofits, help take care of folks. And they had ways of doing it where they held people accountable when the government holds no one accountable for anything. So I was talking to this supervisor who called me about what my views on he'd read my articles in the Territorial and heard maybe the radio station occasionally, but read my articles in the Territorial and was concerned about some of my views. And it's just, it's just me. It's like I tell people, it's just one person's view. But I asked him, he's a hardworking guy. He's not a government employee. He owns his own business. And I said, let me ask you this. You're going to go out and spend millions of dollars here, and you're going to fund people. You're going to put them up in houses. You're going to give them more money. You ignore the laws. The Sutter County Sheriff now will not enforce the law, just like the police chief of Marysville's not enforcing the law against homeless people. I said, how are your kids doing? He said, okay. I said, did you raise them this way? Like you're going to raise these homeless people? And there was silence on the end of the line. I said, were you using the same principles as a good father that you're now going to do as a supervisor in Sutter County, spending our money? I said, would you use your personal money and put your kids up that were doing drugs, flipping you the bird, not cooperating, not looking for a job, not going into a rehab, not straightening up their attitude? You'd keep funding those? Is that what you're telling me you'd do as a father? And there was silence on the phone. And finally he said, no, I wouldn't do that. I said, then why are you doing it as a supervisor? Well, there's this federal court case. I said, screw the court case. We got people declaring we're going to violate the laws of sanctuary city. Why don't we just say, we're going to be a sanctuary city where we're not going to follow the federal law saying that homeless can destroy our property, steal our stuff. And I asked him, I said, do you know that if I go in to CVS and take a bottle of something like shampoo and $25 item, I could get arrested if I don't pay for it. But I could go outside and steal their shopping cart that's worth $125 and put all my crap in it. And no, not one law enforcement agency in this area is going to arrest me. Now, you help me out with the logic of that. And there are people pushing somebody else's property. They're just, I said, what other business where you can go in and you can just steal a piece of equipment right off their property, $125, $150. Look it up, shopping cart, and Google it. And some of those shopping carts are worth $200. Tell me what other business in this community you can take a $150, $125 item and walk right off with it. I'm telling you, people, the problem we have here, like I asked a city councilman one day, I said, who are the adults in this community? I asked Jim Whitaker one day, I suggested to him that he's a leader in this community. He said, we're not the leaders of Sutter County. I said, honestly, Jim, if you're not as supervisors, you're not a leader in Sutter County. Please inform me who's running this place. I am so sick of politicians saying, elect me, I'm your boy or your girl, and I will straighten this mess out. And they get in there and they just create a bigger and bigger and bigger mess. They lose their mind. They spend taxpayer money. They would never spend their personal dollars doing what they're doing with taxpayer money. And then they'll go get what we call money from the Grants. Do you know the Grant family? The Grants are the wealthiest people in the world. They're past the Rockefellers, Bill Gates, Mr. Facebook, Zuckerberg, Bezos of Amazon.com. This is the Grants. Because anytime the government guys, they run out of your tax dollars, they go and they get money from the grants. They call it grant money. And when they get grant money, they say, well, that's not really your money. And you go, well, wait a minute. I thought the grants took my money to have their money. You know, it's amazing. Politicians are so full of crap. They're just full of crap. They say, well, it's grant money. That's not really our money. But it is your money. There isn't any money that government has that didn't start with you. And then they completely spend your money contrary to how they would spend their personal money. That's why, you know, it's interesting. They did a study recently on who is the biggest tippers. Who are the most generous tippers? You know who those are? That would be conservative people. Cheapskates are the Democrats. When you look at who gives the most highest percentage, you know, people say, oh, well, so-and-so gave $1 million or $50,000 or, I mean, Jesus handled that issue when he was in the temple. You remember reading that? Maybe you should read the Bible. Maybe that'd help you figure out how to help poor people. Jesus was in the synagogue, and all these big wealthy people are going through putting money in the coffers. And people said, hey, check that dude out, man. He's kicking in a lot. And he said, no, look at that old lady over there. She put in all she had. Democrats are famous for saying, I gave at the office. In other words, my tax dollars, like, Al Gore, Bill Clinton, they usually gave their used underwear or dirty underwear to Salvation Army or something, and they put that down as a deduction on their 1040 form. They didn't give any money to charity. Their big generosity in life was giving away your money that they took from you through the IRS and through other taxes, sales taxes and other taxes. And they gave away your money for stuff they were not willing to personally fund. Do you think any of these people that are making these decisions, I don't know of a politician in the 2 counties that have ever taken in a homeless person and helped them. I have. Our church has. In fact, we have people living on our campus that were homeless right now. And numbers of people in our church have taken in people that are homeless. I don't know whether that's a practice of other churches, but we have. I know what it's like to try to straighten out a situation. But these people act like experts and then go drop a couple $1 million and then they want to slap it. Like right now is the 1-year anniversary of the Bendorf Zoo. And they're having a celebration. They're busting out the cake. I want to play a clip here. I think do we have time? Do we have time? We have time. There's a clip here. It's the title of it is "There is Only One Way Out of Poverty." So if you're in poverty today, listen closely.
What's the best way to help poor people escape poverty? Progressives and conservatives have very different answers to this question. But before we explore those answers, let's agree on this. Both progressives and conservatives believe that the government has a moral obligation to help those who, through bad luck or unfortunate circumstances, can't help themselves. Here's what a conservative icon, Nobel Prize-winning economist Friedrich Hayek said on the subject. There is no reason why, in a society that has reached the general level of wealth ours has attained, the first kind of security should not be guaranteed to all. Some minimum of food, shelter, and clothing, sufficient to preserve health and the capacity to work. Whatever the media might tell you, there isn't a conservative out there who would not agree with Hayek's statement. As I've documented in my book, Who Really Cares?, when it comes to philanthropy and charitable giving, conservatives actually outgive progressives by a lot. Where the two sides disagree is on the role the government plays, not in protecting the poor from poverty, but in lifting them out of it. Here's a disturbing piece of data. On balance, since President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty programs came fully online in 1966, the poverty rate in America has hardly budged. That rate, as computed by the United States government, was 14.7% in 1966. And today, it's 13.5%. The rate has fluctuated a few points up and down over the decades. The net result is just 1 percentage point of progress. And this is after the government has spent over $20 trillion on poverty relief programs. $20 trillion, the current size of the U.S. debt, and the needle has barely moved. Now, it's true that the official poverty rate doesn't measure consumption. Certainly, poor people today have many more things than poor people did in 1970. Across all income levels, including the poor, Americans are likely to have cell phones, air conditioners, flat-screen TVs, computers, and a car. And life expectancy has lengthened considerably thanks to overall improvements in healthcare. But it demeans poor people to say that this material progress makes poverty less of a problem. Our goal should never be to merely make poverty less miserable for people. Our goal must be to make poverty more escapable. Many progressives offer a straightforward solution: more funding for poverty programs. They believe that we need to transfer more wealth through government taxation from people who have money to people who don't. This is the income inequality argument. Conservatives have a different answer: more opportunity. Conservatives define success by how few people need help from the government, not by how many people we can enroll in government programs. When they see 60% more people on food stamps after the recession than we had before it started, conservatives say, that's not success, that's failure. You see, conservatives believe that simply giving people money doesn't help them escape poverty. On the contrary, it can keep them locked into it. Getting things without working for them is a very hard habit to break. So much so that it can become a way of life. According to my research, earning your way out of poverty is much more empowering and enduring than being supported by a variety of government programs which do little more than maintain people in their poverty. This doesn't mean the government doesn't have a role to play. Indeed, wherever possible, the government and private charities should require people to work in exchange for social assistance. When we do this, we help people in two ways. First, through welfare, we're helping them meet their immediate material needs. And second, through work, we're helping them earn their own success, the key to a fulfilling and dignified life. Whether we're progressive or conservative, shouldn't that be what we want for our fellow citizens? I'm Arthur Brooks, president of the American Enterprise Institute for Prager University.
When I was growing up, I used to think that probably every family, I just assumed every family was just like my family. They go to work, they sit down at the breakfast table, dinner table, have dinner together, have a few highballs, smoke some cigarettes, have life, right? And I think if you've been raised in California, you think, well, probably every state is kind of like this state. The other day, there's some new folks that were walking by my house, and we started to talk. They stopped, and they lived around the corner, and they moved here from Indianapolis, Indiana. It was so fascinating because they had retired from various jobs out there, and they moved here because their son, and like a lot of reason people move around to be near the grandkids, right? And they said they walk every day like a lot of retired folks do, get some exercise, keep their heart ticking, right? And so I said, oh, what do you think? I said, California's pretty expensive to live. They said, oh, yeah, it's really expensive. And so they said, we're living with our son all together on a piece of property here in Marysville. And they said, we noticed a lot of people just don't work here. I got such a kick out. They said young people, healthy people that are just sitting around shooting the breeze all day around here. And they said it's very, it just wasn't that way. People were working back where we were. But they said that's just an observation. It's not a survey. We didn't do a survey. But I said, honestly, man, I pointed out all the houses up and down my street where people don't do any work. They just get up, have their coffee, mess around for a number of hours, and go to bed at night. And that's the end of the day. And in order to do that, it isn't like they're independently wealthy. Somebody in the government is like me, who's paying taxes, still working, is paying for my food and electricity and their food and electricity. It's just interesting how in California, I don't know whether you realize this, but 1 of every 3 welfare recipient resides in this state. I want you to think about that. There are 350 or so Americans, and 1 of 3 reside in a state of about 35 million. The policies in the state of California are encouraging people to not work, but to get on the government dole. And so now the Sutter and Yuba County supervisors are just slapping themselves on the back and having a happy time. And all the successes they claim they have. Remember Obama when we had the shovel-ready jobs? He claimed there were shovel-ready jobs, and then later, within the year, said, well, there really wasn't shovel-ready jobs, because he had no idea what it takes to start a construction project on what ready really means. He's just an idiot, right? But, of course, he was already anointed as the most intellectual person in America, so how could the most intellectual person in America be a practical idiot? In fact, has he ever had a real job? And so there's been no talk about getting these people to work. It's just kind of getting them from polluting the river bottoms. It's amazing to me when the sheriff will not, and the sheriff and law enforcement just back down. They'll go out and arrest gangbangers and drug dealers, but they will allow people to just trash the community. And recently, after months of protests with the city police of Marysville, 2 vehicles were just towed off my street, and I'll pick the rest up on the back side of this commercial.
We hear it all the time, but it's not really federal aid, 'cause the money is yours and mine. The money is yours and mine. I read in the papers in real big print about a sugar-coated speech made by our president. With federal aid, he thinks he'll win our trust. But federal aid, hell, the money belongs to us. He puts taxes on this, taxes on that, just any kind of tax to keep the government fat. He says he's gonna give us federal aid or bust. But federal aid, hell, the money belongs to us. Federal aid, we hear it all the time. But it's not really federal aid, 'cause the money is yours and mine. The money is yours and mine. He started a new program, the Anti-Poverty School. I think it's a good idea, nobody wants to be a fool. Now he says he's running short of funds, and that ain't no joke. But it ain't the government that's hurting, it's us that's going broke. Now if we could just keep most of the money we've made, there wouldn't be much reason to have federal aid. Now I believe in helping the poor, I think it's a must. But it's not federal aid, hell, the money belongs to us. Federal aid, we hear it all the time. But it's not really federal aid, 'cause the money is yours and mine. The money is yours and mine. Now, why should the president take all the credit when the money we donate is what makes up his debit? Each time a disaster strikes our great land, federal aid takes the credit for lending a hand. Now, I'd like to think that my dollar helped out, and so would everyone else, without any doubt. 'Cause it's really our money we place in their trust, so federal aid, hell, the money belongs to us.
All right, federal aid, hell, the money belongs to us. Well, I spent about the last couple of months making requests of Marysville Police Department to remove violations on my block, and I didn't get them all removed, but I got 2 of them removed. But I thought, I bet if, I'll give you an example. If somebody parked in my driveway on my private property, I could have them towed off in a matter of minutes by calling if they blocking my driveway, right? I've had people do that before. And they were next door, so I just went over and asked them, and they moved a car. But I could call a tow truck, and a tow truck would come right over and tow it out of there. In fact, you'll see, if you see parking lots around town, and there's signs like for one name like Randy's Towing, or Ramirez Towing, or ABC Towing, and they'll say if you park in there and you're not frequenting that business, your car going to get towed out of there. And you're not going to have to wait 1, 2, 3 days, 4 months, 6 months. It's going to be gone. And it is gone when you let private enterprise do it. Now, my suggestion to the Marysville City Council is that they turn over code enforcement to a bidder, that they would bid on the project, and they would decide how much money they would give the city, and then I would call a private enterprise, like I would call a towing company, to come over and take care of citing code enforcement issues, whether their cars blocked up, sitting up on jacks on blocks, which is illegal, broke down cars, illegal, sitting in the same place for 1, 2, 3, 4 days or months, or trailers that you live in, or trailers that you tow stuff with, illegal on the streets of the city to be left day after day after day, week after week, month after month. A private enterprise would have those things cited, warned, and towed in a matter of they could do it all within 1 week and follow all the proper ordinances. Now, why can't the government do it? It's the same reason why Nevada runs out of marijuana when government's running the marijuana dispensaries. The same thing. They're incompetent. They can't do it. So that's why that would be very simple, and we'll just let the police do whatever they think is more important. They obviously don't think code enforcement is important, because literally the grass underneath these vehicles is 1.5 feet high. And it took me repeated calls. And I had a travel trailer, a 20-foot travel trailer, not hooked up to anything, but parked, stashed, stored on 11th Street, was there 6 to 8 months with repeated calls. They just sat there. If a private enterprise had that contract, just like right now we have contracts with Elite Security to provide security going into the courthouse at Yuba County and other county buildings. We don't use cops. A company like Elite Security could have the contract on all code enforcement and follow the same rules. In other words, you can't just go tow something. You got to post it. You got to mark the tires to see if it did move or is going to move or was going to move, so you can see whether the thing is just going to sit there, because you can't let it just you can park along the curb in the city of Marysville or most cities for a day or so, but then you got to move the car. It's got to be active. You can't just stash cars on curbs. And a private enterprise could take that over and take the burden off the city, and we could lay off people and let private enterprise do it, mark the cars, tow the cars. And if they're going to pay a spiff to the city, they could pay a little tax to the city. But the bottom line is there's no reason we have to do a crappy job of code enforcement and employ government workers when they can't do the job. Now, the latest thing I was just reading this morning is actually in Thursday's paper, the Peel Democrat, on A3. Go look at it. Sutter County goes to 9/80 work schedule. So instead of in a 2-week period, instead of working 10 days, 8 hours a day, the county is now going to go to 9 days, 10 hours a day, right? And work 80 hours, 10-hour days. And so once every 2 weeks, they'll have an extra day free during the week to take care of personal business, according to County Administrator Scott Mitnick. What he's saying here is he's saying this is going to benefit us financially. He said it's going to benefit the county departments financially. It's going to benefit let me back up. Listen to this. Sutter County implementation of a flexible work schedule will not only serve the needs of, when I read this, I want you to see if there's something missing. Josh Gutierrez wrote it. I think he's a good writer. I'm not blaming this on Josh. I'm just saying, is there some topic that's missing here? Let me read it how he's written it. It's not his issue. Sutter County's implementation of a flexible work schedule will not only serve the needs of the employees, but benefit departments and the county financially, according to county's Director of Human Resources. I want to read that again. I want you to tell me what's missing. Sutter County's implementation of a flexible work schedule will not only serve the needs of the employees, but benefit departments and the county financially. There's nowhere in this article that it talks about benefiting the public, providing a higher level of services to the public. What this ends up doing, I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just showing that government does not have you in mind. When it saves money, it's not doing it because it's the public's money. It's doing it so it can balance their budget and use the money somewhere else. On Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved updates to the county rules to allow for what is called the 980 work schedule. Regina Romeo, Director of Human Resources, said employees she has spoken with are very excited. Well, thank you, Jesus. When the city of Marysville, now this is the other thing as I read this article. It says that some departments will still provide services every day, and some won't. Now, I want you to think about when you shop. I want you to think of when you went over to Winco to shop for groceries. And if you showed up over there at your time because you assumed when they were open, and you got there and they weren't open. Have you ever gone to a business, a small enterprise, private enterprise, and you went there and they said, sorry, we'll be back in a few hours. You seen those little time, clock signs? Sorry, we'll be back at 2. Sorry, we'll be back at 3. Is that a happy experience for you? Do those businesses that have unstable work hours cause you problems in your busy life? In this article, it says that this is so government. They're going to post their new hours probably on their door. So that means all these different departments, the people that are going to use those departments are forced to use them, whether they got to go get a building permit or got to go in there and deal with welfare or whatever, have to somehow memorize all those different days of the week. Instead of everybody assuming that, hey, if it's Monday through Friday, however y'all work it out over there, whether some people have Monday off, some people have Friday off, but Monday through Friday, somebody's going to be there to answer my question. That's going to be very frustrating. And this is why government is such a pain in the ass. That's why the founding fathers hated government. They hated it. Why do you think they said everybody needs to have guns? Because government's going to come screw you over, and you're going to have to take the government over at some point. It wasn't about hunting and fishing and protecting yourself from a mountain lion or something. It was for taking over the government, a tyrannical government. The government totally has blinders on when it comes to public service. And the fascinating thing is, this is another euphemism. They said, "Oh, I'm in public service. I've dedicated my life to public service." Really? It's like, no, that would be McDonald's. McDonald's dedicates itself to public service because almost any time I want a burger, I can go there and get one, right? Food Max or these 24-hour grocery stores, Walmart or whichever stays open 24 hours, they are involved in public service. Gas stations that are open you don't even have a person working you can pull up at gas stations now and you can get gas and nobody has to be there. That's public service. Government calls it public service and you don't know when they're open. They know when they're open because they know when they can get to be gone. It's interesting to me when I listen to public servants, government workers, and you know what they talk about after they've been working there a few years? Their talk is never about how can we increase public service. It's all about when I get to retire, how many days to retirement. You see something wrong with that picture? If you're in business, if you're in private business, you may be thinking about retirement, but your focus is on getting more customers and serving them well. And if you have to increase your hours of operation, that would be public service. When I joined the training zone, or back then it was Pro Fitness, it was a gym, they were open to like 10 or 11 at night. And a lot of people couldn't come. A lot of people wanted to come in the middle of the night. Finally, Chris Gill made it a 24-hour operation. Now they do it, I think, 5 days a week, and then some days are just 11 and open back up at 6 on the weekend. But that's public service. That is making your services, when you become a member of that organization, That means that you can dip into that anytime you wish. That's the easiest thing to do, is anytime you want to go work out or catch a sauna or walk on, it's raining outside, you want to walk on a treadmill, we got you. 1 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep, come on over. So now we got, my point is, there's nothing in this article about being customer sensitive. And yet they always say, oh, yeah, we're here for you, right? We got people that are freaking out trying to get a building permit, are having problems with CPS and need to go talk to somebody. They're panicking because they screwed up and the CPS took their kids and they're trying to get them back. And we got issues with all kinds of stuff, right? The county is controlling welfare, food stamps, right? They created this whole monster. And now, who are they going to serve? Let's see, we're going to make our employees happy? This sounds like Scott Mitnick. I think Scott's probably a nice guy. Supervisor told me this week that, well, the way you wrote that article, it sounds like he flies back and forth. He actually drives. And I thought, oh, my God. I didn't say this, but I thought, you mean he has to drive a car and drive all the way back down there to Thousand Oaks where he regrets having to leave? And he says, yeah, he's thinking about buying a house up here. I said, oh, well, that's nice of him. I wrote an article wondering why we hire all these people. We can't find any people that want to move here to the Yuba Sutter area. They all have to commute in, whether they live in Nevada County or Placer County. It's like, right? Can't get a police chief willing to live in the city. Administrators, county administrators, take $250,000 a year and live elsewhere. So I want you to read this article. You go find somewhere in here where it says the public will benefit. How's the public going to benefit? By not going broke because they ran the place into the ground, and so now we're going to save costs? So it says the update requires departments to post hours and days of operation to the public at their physical work site and web addresses. So that means everybody in Sutter County now is going to have to realign themselves to a new hour of, if you need anything, you got to figure out whether they're open or not, right? You just can't assume they're open Monday through Friday. All the rest of us are operating Monday through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we knew they weren't going to work on Saturday and Sunday, right? Like when I worked in farming, I always did all my spraying and all my burning when I knew the county workers weren't paying any attention because I didn't want to hassle from them. I didn't want to visit from them and want to talk to me. You know what they do? They're not on the time clock like I am, right? Well, they are, but it doesn't make any difference whether they accomplish anything. So they pull up on your farm. You farmers out there know this. And then they get out of their vehicle and stare at you until you stop your tractor in the middle of the day, get off your implement, and come over and then start being questioned. Well, can I see your permit? Can I see the chemicals that you're putting in there in the mixture, your deal? Well, did you call in to tell them that you were going to burn? So you know what I did? I just worked on all the holidays, and screw those people. This government, they don't even see this. Mr. Mitnick and the board doesn't even see this. These guys get on the board. Sullinger was in private enterprise. Conant was in private. Flores in private. When they get on the board, it's just like a veil falls over their eyes. They can't get it. And there's not one paragraph in here about serving the public, about we're increasing public services. You know what increased public services? Lay off those people. Let me go in and just put my form in like an ATM machine and let it suck it in and kick me out a permit. That would be public service, where I wouldn't have to talk to anybody, and you just give me what I need. Take your money, and let me go on down the road and get stuff done. Or I can go in and I can just put my citation in a slot, and it would tell me how much to pay, and I can just pay it, and I wouldn't need no clerk there to collect the money. You go up to Yuba County Courthouse, I don't know about Sutter County because I haven't been in over there. But Yuba County Courthouse, it's just like a big old line of ticket booths, and everybody's collecting money or stuff from people. Let's just eliminate all those folks and just shove your stuff through the window and get you a receipt, and you can move on and we don't need them people to be open. You know, when Marysville got in a financial pickle and said, we're going to go on furlough and we're closing on Fridays, I didn't even miss them. In fact, I said, hey, why don't you close on Wednesdays through Fridays? Because I don't think we need you people. And I don't think it'd affect my life one bit if you were gone. What, do I need you to lie to me, cheat me, monkey around with the political agenda, change the codes every time I'm not looking? You change the ordinance and the codes to bless your little rich friends? What? Why do we need, it's just kind of like the supervisors a while back. I just said, they said, well, we don't want to meet so often because of this or that. I thought, hey, why don't we just skip you guys? Let's just start a charter county and change it all up here, and we'll do things totally different. So I'm fascinated. This is quite a long article. Josh did a nice job. I appreciate him taking the time to write it, and the Appeal Democrat including it. So it says department implementation of the new schedule will occur as follows. July 24, assessors, boards of supervisors, county administrator office, county council, human resources. I guess July 24, those guys are all changes. August 7, child support service, development services. August 21, public health. September 4, auditor controller. September 18, general service. All those departments not listed are either unable to close. That would be the sheriff's department. Like a lot of the criminals wish the sheriff's department closed on Fridays or Saturday nights. Wouldn't that be great? All the DUI people, all the drunk guys like to drive and drink. Let's shut that sheriff's department down for a night. We can get tanked. Or how about a Net 5? Let's shut those guys down. Staying open every weekday while still offering the 980 schedule or still working on it. Anyway, it's just so fascinating to me. This may be great for everybody. It may save money. But again, the public gets screwed. I mean, how many times can you screw somebody over? That's what's happening here. And I wonder, it's certainly going to benefit Mitnick running back and forth. He's got to drive all the way back to Ventura to visit his wife and family. But I'm sure anytime people get Fridays off, hallelujah to you, that 3-day weekend. Have you noticed that all the President's Day, we quit having Washington and Lincoln holidays? Why they just combine everything? Do you think that's to help GNR Market or Coomer Kyram of Washington Avenue Market, or ABC Plumbing, or the Plumbing Doctor, or Dave Greenis Construction? No. It's all to benefit all these 3-day holidays. It's all about government unions, folks. You get it? Did you get off? No, when I worked in paint contracting, when I worked for the car business, when I worked in private enterprise, when I worked for the church, we didn't get those times off. It's all about government unions, people. So that's going to happen. So that means that here's what's going to happen. You know what they should have is at every doorway in the county, they should have a crayon where they can mark something that can mark on the window or a board, and everybody could express their feelings on a board when they come there and they had no idea this was happening, and they're not connected to their web page, and they don't know what's happening, and they go there and say, you just screwed me out of an hour in my day right here coming over here. Right? Because our tax dollars, we expect you guys to be open. If they want to rotate schedules and kick people a Friday every once in a while, who cares, right? But to just close up, crazy. Why not just close the whole place down? Why don't you just shut some of those departments down and save some money? We'll be right back.
Well, why not do what we did? Call Lincoln. At Lincoln, we got 3 rooms full of great carpeting for just $29.
Although you might not believe it, I was once a highly paid executive for a major electronics firm. I'd come home exhausted every evening with a nagging headache and jagged nerves. Well, all that has changed now that I've learned about welfare. Thanks to welfare, I've quit my job. I sleep until noon, watch television all day, and I still get a check every month in the mail. Why, I even save money at the checkout counter thanks to welfare's convenient food stamp program. And, unlike unemployment, the benefits never run out. You don't even have to speak English or be a U.S. citizen to qualify. Sound incredible? Well, it's true. If you'd like to find out more about welfare, just pick up your phone and dial toll-free 1-800-WELFARE. That's all there is to it. Operators are standing by now at 1-800-WELFARE. Don't spend another week at work. Call now.
Welfare. It's not just a benefit, it's a way of living. Sponsored by the United States government.
Hello, it's the Reverend Gene Filler here at the Church of Unlimited Credit. I'm coming to you for the final time this evening because, you know, I've been working harder than a one-lip girl at a kissing booth trying to get you to realize we need your money here at the Church of Unlimited Credit. Now, come on now. Reach inside there and find it within your soul to send your money down here to the Church of Unlimited Credit. Now, I've even brought my own son, Biff, here today from our Club God in Malibu, California, to explain to you a religious experience that he had while being a member of the Church of Unlimited Credit. Biff, good to have you here.
Well, it was a real trip, Dad. I mean, it was one of those true life experiences in that I had dinner with Buddy. Around 8 o'clock, we were having lobster. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and it looks like a grapefruit has been sewn into my face. I'm having a reaction. And I panic, and I don't know from doctors in California after 3 years. And so I think of you, and I go over to the bureau, and I write out a blank check, and poof, the face goes away. I don't know for miracles, but that was a miracle to me.
Yes, isn't it amazing the power we have here at the Church of Unlimited Credit? So please, don't be afraid to write us that check you've been holding back. Because right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're running on empty. And you know, if we're on empty, we're not just going down belly up alone. There's going to be a few of us on that train down to Mondo Dismal. So God bless you all. And remember what I've just said. No pressure, but join us here at the Church of Unlimited Credit. Good evening and good night.
All right, well, we're heading towards the finish line here today, and we had a fellow call in that works for government and was trying to explain this flex schedule to me, and I'm not going to go through all the options and the variations, but I'm just going to say it how they said it here in the paper. It says, instead of working 10 8-hour days in a 2-week period, which is what most of us think of as work. You go to work 8 hours, and so 5 days a week, boom. In 2 weeks, you got 80 hours, right? The employees will accumulate their 80 hours through 9 days. So, and what this gentleman is saying, some days will be longer than the others. So however they do it, my concern was, I hope it all works out for them, and I hope it does benefit them. Like, I'm not, wherever people are working, I hope it's the best type of system that could benefit them and their family. Like I see all these females working at the sheriff's department each week, Yuba County Sheriff. They're correctional officers in the jail, and they got kids at home, and they're getting pregnant, and I feel bad because there's a lot of pressure, and it's a really tough job. I'm just talking about one job. I'm not pointing them out above anybody else. I'm just watch them, and I know the pressures on them. I know they have families at home, and it's tough, right? It's tough wherever people are working because you got to balance out kids at daycare, all that stuff. So I know that government workers, regardless of whether we like the size of government or anything, there's a lot of wonderful people over there. And they got a lot of pressures on their life. They got relationships that aren't working out. They got kids that are going sideways. They're trying to keep them in school, doing right. And so whatever schedules work out to help people earn a living and help them do all that rest of life, good for them. The thing that I find fascinating, and I won't dwell on this much longer because I want to talk about one other thing before we leave, is that there's no talk in this article about how the public benefits from this. If you want to say the only place it benefits, I'm talking about outside the workers. They're the public also. If you want to say the only place it benefits is we're not wasting more of your money, okay, I got you. But I'm telling you that people showing up at these offices, and this office is closed, and then this office isn't, and this office over here is closed, and I just think it's going to just piss people off. So I want to finish today by talking about a guy that I believe, I'm not saying he's mentally ill, but from the time I first met Jerry Brown, and I don't mean met him personally, but when I was living in Sacramento, he was governor the first time, a youngster with lots of dark brown hair, and drove an old Plymouth and lived in his own apartment, wouldn't move into the governor's mansion. That guy has got stranger and more weird and bizarre in his socialist ways as he's got older. And I wish Jerry well in retirement, but he's a liar. And he's I get tired of people like Bill Simmons says this, well, there's really no right and wrong. It's just all gray matter. There's really no black and white. It's just all gray. I got a really big problem with that. And I got a problem with Jerry Brown, who will say whatever he needs to say to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. So they ran out of money. The state ran out of money. Was it back in 2011? I'm trying to find my spot here. In 2011, they ran out of money. And Brown cut $40 million out of the state's budget for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, they call CAL FIRE today. He took $40 million from them because they were short of money. Then he levied what they call a fee because it was illegal to raise taxes without a two-thirds vote of the public. So he assessed a fee, not on everybody, a $150 fee, but on primarily Republican districts in the state of California, the rural districts. And he levied a $150 fee per dwelling on the property. So if you had two houses or a house and a barn, it'd be 2 times $150. And he reportedly did that as revenge because the government legislators, the Republican legislators, had a role in killing a sales tax increase that it was to expire on July 1, 2011. So in response to their lack of support to extend that sales tax, and because the government had overspent, he took a $40 million cut out of the California Department of Forestry, then turned around and told the taxpayers in the rural areas, you're costing us too much money, even though you're paying taxes, you're not paying enough taxes to provide you fire protection, so we're going to charge you $150 a dwelling. They called that a fire fee, but it's ever since then been called a fire tax, and there's been a class action lawsuit circling the runway ever since. So people have been filing appeals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Yuba County residents, a lot of Yuba County residents and Butte County residents and on the way all through the foothills, Nevada County, Placer County, all along the foothills are paying that tax. So now this cap and trade, I don't know whether you followed this cap and trade thing. It was passed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a wolf in sheep's clothing, claiming he was a Republican, but he was a Democrat. They passed a cap and trade thing, which amounts to this. It's kind of like if you in a few hours, I'm going to cross the Bay Bridge, and I'm going to pay them $5 to do so. I think it's $5 or $6, I think. And the assumption is that I'm contributing to the wear and tear of that bridge. And so they're going to take my $5 and they're going to pay for that toll keeper, and they're going to pay for the maintenance of that bridge. So cap and trade means that businesses, big businesses in California, because of their footprint or their print, their let's just call it a footprint on the natural environment, nature, on global warming, because their impact on global warming, which really doesn't exist, but in Brown's mind, it's worse than Bigfoot, that they have to pay the state of California additional taxes. So, you know, it's like when we get taxed, they always used to have a reason for a tax. Well, we're going to use a gas tax for road funds, but we really don't do that in the state. So what they call these cap and trade taxes is essentially trading or paying the government for the impact you're having on the society, on the earth, on the atmosphere. It's just like when I went to Sutter County and I was kind of the PR guy or the liaison guy for Glad Tidings and getting permits and stuff. We were building a 20,000 square foot, 2-story education building. I'll never forget it. And I was in there we made it through the entire system, planning, noise study, dust study, traffic study, percolation tests, sewage tests, fees. And I was there to pay the final building permit fee to get it so we could start construction. And I walked in and they say, "Oh, we made a mistake." And I said, "What would that be?" And they said, "Well, we didn't add the impact fees." And I said, "How much is that?" And it was like thousands of dollars. And I said, "Can you tell me what impact on what?" And they said, "Well, this building is going to have a negative impact on law enforcement and fire." And I said, "Okay, fire." I said, "They don't need to get a new higher ladder truck. It's a 2-story building. It's not like 6 stories." And I said, "We actually donate our time to police and fire. We're chaplains. We run trauma intervention. We help police and fire. We run drug rehabs. So we have a positive impact." They said, "Oh, no, that's not what we're talking about. When you add a building, that means that it's just going to increase the workload on police and fire." So that's a fee that we had to pay, and I was stuck with it. So the impact here, so what they're saying is that just by existing, big corporations are affecting the environment, so you have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the money doesn't go to the environment. The money doesn't go to clean water, to do anything, to build more reservoirs. It's just like, you remember when you voted for that water bond, those 2 water bonds for more water? You remember the drought and we were running out of water and water was fantastically expensive? And I just want to let you know that none of those water billions went to any water resources. No new dams. We didn't build bigger dams. We didn't extend Shasta up another 18 feet. We got zero out of that, although they claimed they were going to do that. You see, they lied to us. So this cap and trade is simply taking millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that corporations have to, more taxes that they're going to give the state. And then they use it for social programs. But supposedly Governor Brown doesn't seem to have the votes he needs, and he needs some Republican votes. So now he is saying, I'm going to end the fire tax. Remember, the fire tax was started to punish government legislators and their districts for not supporting an extension of an old sales tax that was expiring in 2011, right? So then we got a fire tax where it just punished Republican districts primarily. Like a city of San Francisco, no fire tax. L.A., no fire tax. San Diego, no fire tax, not in the city. Any of these big metropolitan areas, no fire tax. Just, and did fire enforcement, fire protection increase? No. It didn't stop that fire that we just had. So now he's promising Republican legislators, I'm going to make you look good to your constituents. I'm going to stop the fire tax. I'm just going to wave my wand as governor and put the kibosh on the fire tax after years and years and years of people paying $150, $300, $450, depending on how many dwellings they had on their rural property. In exchange for ending the fire tax, you vote for a cap and trade. In other words, you know something? Did you vote for that cigarette tax to screw the guy next door because you don't smoke and screw the guy next door? He shouldn't smoke anyway. That's the way taxes get passed. If you're not going to have to pay for it, but the next guy does, you say, well, screw that guy. I'm gonna vote. I'm going to punish him. It's like going over and tagging his front door and messing up his property. So you make it harder to live for him. So it's like some of you are going to think, well, it's not going to affect me, this cap and trade tax. So I'm not against it. Really? I'm telling you, you're going to pay for it every time you go to the grocery store, every time you buy a car, every time you buy any consumer item, you're going to pay that cap and trade tax. But that's what I'm bringing up here today is the dishonesty. These people are, they aren't a step below criminals. These people are right in there with the criminals. We got people in prison and in jail that have not done things as bad as these people have. The injustice of our government is amazing. Now, I want to give you another. This is such a great example. The title of this is We're Losing More People to the Sweets than to the Streets. Why 2 black pastors are suing Coca-Cola. Now, this is amazing because these guys are suing Coca-Cola because black people are fat and Mexican people are fat. But primarily, this is a percentage of adults in each demographic who say they drank 1 or more regular sodas each day. White, 21%, or 15% white, black, 21%, Hispanic, 22, almost 23%. They're complaining about people's behavior, and it's all Coca-Cola's fault. I don't drink Coca-Cola. I quit drinking sodas a long time ago because I felt they were bad for me. I decided that on my own. I didn't go and call the legislator and say, because I'm not going to use them, I don't want anybody else to be able to have one. Right? My friend across the glass here likes Coca-Cola. I told him it's going to kill him, but he drinks them anyway. Right? I told him about the YouTube thing where they pour Coca-Cola in a funky-looking toilet, let it lay there for a minute, scrub it a little bit. Leon said he's suing. He just wrote on a board, I'm suing him too. So he drinks Coca-Cola that they can clean a toilet with. So obesity, hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and lower extremity amputations are all far higher among people of color than they are whites. Therefore, we need to stop Coca-Cola, but then we need to go beyond that and stop like chocolate and cake and Krispy Kreme donuts. Let's go after all the sugar. Let's say, send all the sugar back to Cuba. Stop growing sugar beets and sugar cane. This suit, much like the prior one in California that was dropped, argues that the beverage industry has deceived consumers about the unique link between soda consumption and diseases such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, using messaging tactics similar to those once deployed by the tobacco industry. Obesity impacts nearly half of African Americans and 42% of Latinos. You've seen some of those hot-looking young black girls after they have one kid. All of a sudden, man, they're about 56 inches around the midsection. They never do get rid of it. But how come whites aren't subjected? How come whites get just over obesity? There's a lot of fat white people out there. I was going to play that commercial for you we played in the past, but I didn't have time to pull it out. And the whole motto of the commercial of this fat gal was you know how you have all these diets? This motto was move more, eat less. It's just a thought. Move more, eat less. So they're saying that it's all the industry's fault, and they're taking the responsibility off of the folks. Says there's a health crisis in the U.S., especially in our community, especially among the children. This is not coincidental. They target, I want you to listen to this now. They target our communities with their marketing. These are black guys here and Mexican. But they're two black pastors leading the charge. Now, these guys, I'm going to get after these guys in a minute. We're going into these communities trying to save lives, and they're going out and erasing our message. Now, I would like to just ask all these folks that feel like their black communities are getting targeted, that Coca-Cola is trying to kill these black people. And I would like to ask them, are they interested in the Planned Parenthood's targeting of their communities, not just to drink a product, which if done in moderation, like I was checking out Leon through the glass here, and he's not obese yet, but of course he's a youngster with a very high metabolism. But I think if he develops a wide midsection at some point, and he realizes that one soda a day might add 10 pounds a year, and 10 years out of high school, he would be 28, and he would be grande. Yeah. So that's 10 times 10. That's how much you weigh now. 130. So that means 230 by the time you're 28. I'm just giving you a little prophetic thought. So these people are saying this Coca-Cola company is targeting our fat black people, or black people to make them fat. Or they're wanting to sell their product and they don't care whether they are getting fat and diseased. I would like to ask the black pastors and the black leaders if they have thought about how many black kids are dead every year because Planned Parenthood targets minorities. Just a thought. And that doesn't creep up on you like a soda a day. It's just like you're aborted, you're dead. And that the majority, let me say it a different way. When you look at all abortions in America, and Planned Parenthood targets women for abortion, they say they're a health organization. They are not. They may think they're involved in mental health, like getting the pressure of being pregnant off a woman. But the fact is, a majority of aborted babies every year are white. That's because there's more white folks still in the country. But the highest percentage of pregnancies that are aborted are black pregnancies. It's like about 70%. I mean, the most dangerous place in America aren't the ghettos, the black ghettos of America, of you getting shot. The most dangerous spot in America for a black child is in the mother's womb, because he's been targeted like he's a little cockroach, and he's a nuisance, and it's like you turn the light on and there he is. And he's caught in the middle of the counter and he's looking for a place to scram under like the toaster or something, so you can't get your shoe off and whack him. And so those little black kids, once they are conceived and that mother starts to have symptoms of being pregnant, it's like spotting the cockroach on the counter. And at that time, the child is wondering, am I going to survive this, or am I going to get swatted while I'm in here and have my life ended before it really got going on the outside? I never even got outside to strut my stuff. But these black people are concerned about a Coca-Cola. In fact, they're going after the big dog. They're not going after 7-Up. They're not going after Pepsi-Cola. They're not going after one of these Brand X Colas, Shasta Cola, or RC Cola. They're going after Coca-Cola, the big dogs. And they're saying you're destroying our community. Honestly, these pastors got their head up their rear end. Because if they wanted to really get it on, but no, it's not politically correct to go after Planned Parenthood, but to go around and scream about sugar. Oh, yeah, you are a real anointed pastor. Can you imagine if Jesus was here today? And he would say, you know, the big problem I got with this society is sugar. Sugar. Yeah, sugar is just of the devil. Just of the devil. Unbelievable. Well, we're getting close to ending. And, I wanted to mention to you just one thing. The Twin Cities Rod and Gun Club, I wrote an article. And because I had seen that they had made their first payment, they were getting the shooting range. They were paying $10 a year for the use of the shooting range, where they're trying to, the Sutter County is trying to clear everybody out of that airport area to come into compliance with the FAA because they haven't done things right over there. And they're going to try to turn that whole area over to homeless people. So the Twin Cities Rod and Gun Club made their first payment of either, I think it's $338 or $348 a month. They went from $10 a year to $348 a month. Well, I just got a memo that the County of Sutter returned their check. So I'm not quite sure what all this means, but ultimately the Twin Cities Rod and Gun Club is going to have to move. But there's all kinds of trouble. It's just in both counties, folks. We've lost our minds, and we just simply don't know how to manage life. Oh, by the way, if you need an extra thing to move things around, you know, like you might need a hand cart or something like that, just stop by CVS, Walmart, Sam's Club, any of these places. Pick up one of their carts. They're free of charge. They give them away now. There's no penalty for taking a shopping cart. You can take them home. You can use them for keep your laundry in. You can use them as a planter. You can use them to store parts. If you have irrigation, big irrigation, you could push them around, have irrigation. You know, you can drain if you need to wash stuff, and they're got holes in them, so you could, like a colander, you could drain stuff.